All right, g'day guys. How are we? Welcome to Talking Boxing. Just taking a little bit, just sorry, the levels there. Welcome to Talking Boxing. I'm Lyndon Hosking, and great to have you along. It is January the 30th, 2023. Beautiful weather we've got out there at the moment, and what a big show we've got for you this evening. Because tonight we should have been sitting here discussing what happened yesterday. Was Tim Charlo. Jamal Charlo, I will say. That is Monday, forgive me. We should be sitting here discussing that fight that should have taken place yesterday. Of course, we all know it didn't take place because of a break in Jamal Charlo's hand. Make of that what you will. We haven't got a date or anything yet, any other details. But tonight, I've got a great treat for everyone out there because I've got the next best thing to discussing the fight. I'm going to discuss Tim Tszyu with his manager, Glenn Jennings. Of course, we all know Glenn. He was the manager of his Tim's dad, Costa, as well, of course, back in the day. And he's going to be joining me in about sort of 10 to 15 minutes. He'll be coming on, and this is a great chance. I'll be obviously covering a lot of ththings with him, but this is really important for you guys. If you've got a question or a comment for Glenn, make sure you put it in there. We won't be able to have any live people come on at the time while he's on because we've only got room for one on this software program. But as I said, if you've got a question, comment, whatever it might be for Glenn, this is your chance to talk to him live on air. So no messages or that sort of stuff. We're going to talk to him live. So it's going to be great to have him on. And of course, so much to talk about. I've got my sort of list here. Of course, we've got to talk about what they think happened to Charlo, how they find out, how much notice did they have, when did the Tony Harrison talk start to come on board, what's happening with, of course, the Harrison fight, the location, what's going on with the belt, of course, what's happening with the rematch, and of course, the March 12 fight. It's going to be stacked with an undercard. We know Nikita Tszyu's on it, of course, and of course, then we want to talk about after the Harrison fight. Hopefully, we get through with a win, of course. Then we can go on to the Charlo fight later in the year, probably mid year. I'm probably thinking, but Glenn will be able to shed some light on that as well. And of course, ticket and location and all the other information that we're all after. So again, thank you for joining in. Apart from that, of course, we've got our usual show. We've got plenty to discuss. We've got Liam Wilson, of course, fighting for the world title this weekend against Emmanuel Navarrete. There's Andy there. How are you, mate? I'll just put that up there. Always great to have you along, mate. You come on every week. I think you're a little bit late last week, but again, great to have you this week. And before Andy gets there, like, share, subscribe, all those different things that you have to do, and let's grow the channel because this is your show. I'm just the host. I love getting on here and talking boxing with you guys, but again, this is your show, so keep the comments and suggestions coming. All right, we've also got this Ace Boxing show that's been announced for April the 1st. A little bit of news on Liam Paro, maybe Teofimo Lopez. I really read with interest what Nick Noonan had to say. I think it was yesterday. Nick, of course, is a regular host on this show for our Boxing Deep Dive show on a Thursday night. So Nick was on, and he had his say. It makes a lot of sense. So I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. Yes, smash the likes, says Andy. Thanks, mate. And then internationally, of course, we had Artur Beterbiev on the weekend over Anthony Yard. Some little bit of news going on with Devin Haney, Vasily Lomachenko, Fury Usyk. So there's so much going on. What have we got there, Paul? All great questions, Lyndon. Can't wait to hear Jennings' responses. Yeah, well, the great thing about Glenn is he only got back from overseas, I think, a day or two ago. And he loves doing these sorts of things, and I like having him on. I don't really pester him to maybe have Tim on. He gets smashed left, right, and centre by all the major networks and social media, and I'm not really stressed about that. We all know what Tim's getting up to. We all know Tim's comments. He's all over YouTube with all the, as I said, social media and whatever it might be in the mainstream media. So I'm not that stressed about getting Tim on, but I'd love to talk to Glenn because he gives us maybe a side to behind the scenes that we don't get through talking, getting Tim on, because Tim, he's got his views and the way he sees things, of course. So, of course, he's always going to pretty much comment the same. And if you like me, you do notice that a lot of the, whether it be social media or mainstream media, always tend to ask the same questions. It must get really hard for guys like Tim and guys like him that you pretty much ask to repeat yourself a lot. And that's why I really love talking to Glenn. As I said, to get a different perspective and a different view and a little bit of different feedback that we might not get if we had Tim on. So I'll let the big boys deal with Tim, and we'll get Glenn on and have a chat, because I'm really interested to hear what he has to say. And of course, he'll know a lot of stuff that maybe even Tim doesn't know. As far as he would have been the one dealing with No Limit and PBC and going back and forth and all the rest of it. So again, really looking forward to having him on. I'll give you a little bit of news before we get started as well into the main stuff, guys. Is that there's a new show I'm putting on. It'll start this week. It's called What's Your Verdict? We haven't done classic fights or dream fights for about a month because we've had people away and everything like that. So a new show will be, as I said, it's called What's Your Verdict, and we'll pick a controversial fight from the past. And we'll go over it all. I'll go through the whole thing. We won't show the whole fight, of course. There'll just be some highlights per round. I'll score the fight round by round, give you my verdict at the end, and you guys can go for it as far as your comments and that go. The first one we're going to do, of course, is Marvellous Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard from 1987, one of the most controversial fights of all time. So I'm going to go through round by round with a quick analysis per round, how I scored it, and we'll see what you guys think. But there's so many controversial fights over the years. This is going to be a new little series I'm going to start. So first series will be out this week. Jack Dilks, welcome to the show, mate. Glenn has to be one of the greatest guys in Oz boxing. Incredible insight. He certainly is, mate, and you've obviously had a lot to do with him like I have as well. He's such a lovely guy. Nothing's ever too hard. He's so down to earth. He's looked after me so many times in different ways, and just a really, really genuine guy. So you won't get a nicer guy, not only in Oz boxing, but world boxing. And I'm sure you can attest to that, Jack. D-Style Boxing, how are you there, mate? What's good, brother? I'm really good, thank you. For a Monday, I know it's Sunday over there. I've got to join you for a live when my schedule permits. That'd be awesome, mate, to get you on. Again, I've been on your show once. It was awesome, so we can do that again. And even better, you can come on mine. I'm not sure the time difference about where you are at the moment, but it'd be great to have you on. I had that for Sugar Ray Leonard, believe it or not. Wow, you'll have to wait and see my verdict on that. Now, I must admit, I had a little bit sort of clear cut, I will say. A lot of close rounds, but with my actual verdict, I thought it was actually definitive. Just my opinion, and that's why I'm going to go through all the controversial fights. There's so many to pick from. You guys got suggestions, let me know. But as I said, Hagler Leonard will be the first one we'll go through. The episode will be out sometime this week. Andy, huge props to say busy. Timmy the Tiger Zoo, is that his nickname? Versus Tony Skills Pay the Bills Harrison. Look. And that's one thing I'm really looking forward to asking Glenn about, is that why are they taking on such a formidable opponent? I understand it's the interim WBO title. No, I get it. And I have been pretty vocal about that. In my opinion, why they would take a risky fight. But in this instance, for the interim title, lots of things will come of it. And Glenn will, of course, spill the beans on what happens after this fight. And again, any questions that you guys have. Team Batman Boxing, D-Style brought me here. Well, great to have you along, Team Batman Boxing. I'm assuming you're from the States. This is obviously an Aussie show. And if you weren't here at the start, Glen Jennings, the manager of Tim Tszyu, will be on in about 5 or 6 minutes. So, again, questions, comments, whatever, let's hear them. Great first fight to debate. Hagler Leonard, yeah. Well, we actually did this as a classic fight. One of our first ones we actually did, so it would have been about 18 months ago, we actually did this fight as a classic fight, but it wasn't really to discuss the verdict. It was just to discuss the event and fight itself and the magnitude of it and a lot of the particulars and just really a review of the whole fight. But this one, round by round, really interested to hear your comments. D-Style Boxing, sup? That's Andy, yep, M-A-W. What have we got there, Team Batman Boxing? I love the comments, mate. If Charlo moves up, would love Tim to fight Liam Smith in the Manchester Arena, same place Hatton fought his dad. Would be an interesting added storyline, and I definitely favour Tszyu. Yeah, it would be great, mate. And maybe I've jumped the gun. Maybe are you English? Maybe not American. Either way, it doesn't matter. It's great to have you along. It would be great, mate. I think look, that fight could happen after this fight. It could happen. Tim, is the type of guy I think that if he wins the title, might defend it maybe against a Spence or Crawford or maybe Fundora, one of these guys. I know he'll be looking to go up and win multiple titles. And Liam Smith, I'm not sure he'll be around maybe when that happens in another 2 years, maybe 3. I'm not sure. Glenn will be able to again fill you in on that. But it would be great, wouldn't it? And it's not going to obviously change the result of Hatton and Tszyu. But yeah, you're right, mate. And look, this fight would have been the one that was on the weekend. It should have been Charlo Tszyu. Would have been on the anniversary of Costa Tszyu and Jake the Snake Rodriguez. So. Now, before we get going there, guys, thanks to Team Batman. You're from UK. Glenn is about to join us, so I'm going to give him a camera there, and we'll bring him on in just a second. Just one more comment there from Team Batman Boxing. I'm from the UK, but do follow the boxing worldwide. Really do like the way the Australian market always matches their talents. Certainly do, mate. We try to. So UK, all the better. And speaking of the UK, someone that's actually just been there, I'm going to bring him on right now. If I can get him, where are we there? We're going to bring him on. Here we go. And there he is, Glen Jennings. How are you, mate?
Good, Lyndon. How are you, mate?
Really good, thank you, mate. We've just we've got a lot of people on here at the moment. Been firing a few questions out there, mate. I'm sure you've been flat out in the last sort of couple of weeks with all the media and everyone wanting comments, but I really appreciate you've taken the time to come on here, mate, and answer a few questions and give us a little bit of a background on what's happening with Team Tszyu 2 at the moment.
Mate, always a pleasure to come on and have a chat with you, mate. It's been a pretty busy time, as you know, so lots to talk about.
Yeah, and how long have you been home for? It would only been a day or two, would it? Or
home on the weekend, and it's been a long haul, mate. I think we all headed off early in December and kicked off the USA camp for Tim in Los Angeles, and of course then had to shoot over to the UK for Shannon O'Connell's world title with Ebony, and back home for Christmas with the kids, and then straight back to LA, picked up the lads and moved the camp out to Vegas. The boys are all flying home in the next couple of days. So, yeah, it's been terrific, mate. Really good.
So tell us about, obviously this all happened before the news dropped on Charlo, which we'll get to in a second. But so did you say you went from Australia to the States to England, yeah. England back to the States, or did you come straight back to Australia?
No, I was going to go back to the States, but I just thought with the amount of travelling that I'd take the extra few days, and so I came direct from the UK back to Australia, had Christmas with the family, and literally headed straight back across to move the camp from LA out to Las Vegas. And it was busy. It was good. Didn't get the result we wanted in the UK, but that's boxing. And it's all come to an end in a couple of days. The boys jump on the flight back home to Australia, and we roll in then straight into the Sydney camp. And fantastic news that we're bringing Justin and Jason Bell, the two big middleweights, are flying to Australia to finish up the camp with Tim in Sydney.
That's great. That's great. So we'll get on to obviously the Charlo situation in a moment. Obviously the Harrison situation now, but so the training camp. How long were you over there, Glenn, before you actually got the news? Because it would have been, was it like 6 weeks or something, or was it a little bit less than that?
It was actually Christmas morning here at home, 6 a.m. Christmas morning. I got the phone call from Matt Rose, and I was sort of half asleep, not really with it, and Matt said, "Mate, you got a minute?" And I said, "Yeah, what's up?" He said, "I've got some horrible news." I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "Mate, Charlo's out." And I said, "Oh, is this a Christmas G up? Because if it is, it's not, it's not funny." And he said, "No, mate, seriously, he's broken his hand." And so there was a little moment of silence, and you just got to take that on board for a moment because the amount of work that had gone into it. And then I thought, how do I break this to Tim and Igor? And I said to Matty, righto, well, it is what it is. We need to move on with this quickly. And so I hung up from Matty. I made the call. I got hold of Igor. Tim was there with him. They were at a shopping centre. And, it didn't go over too well, but I think it was more a shock than anything because it was so out of the blue. I let the boys have a little think, and then we spoke again a couple of hours later and after it had settled in a bit. And we very quickly come to the decision, and I sort of steered the boys along the line that, listen, it is a setback, but we'll move on from this. And, we're already, Matt and I are already in the motions now of finding a replacement fight for you for the same date, if it's at all possible. And we'll keep the camp going in the United States. So Tim just said, yep, whatever you need to do, I'll wait for the results. So Matty and I got to work, Lyndon, and and the negotiations started across the world really to see who was available over Christmas that was in training that would be prepared to take this fight.
So, I mean, we don't have to be a mind reader to understand maybe what was going through Tim's mind, but did you actually speak to Tim initially, or did you leave it to Igor to break the news?
Tim was in a shop at the shopping mall when I spoke to Igor, and I just said, look, don't chase him down. I said, just grab him when you can and let him know, or just call me and we'll have that discussion between the three of us. Igor had that little chat with him on the quiet, and then we spoke about it. So between the three of us, and look, it was not the news any of us wanted, but it is part of boxing, mate, that injuries happen, and I think you just got to be professional, keep your head, especially from a management point of view. Don't show any emotion. Just say, look, we'll move on with this, and we did. And Matty Rose and I went to work straight away on opening up the correspondence around the world to see who we could get.
So, yeah, I will say one thing, because I think like everyone, we found out Christmas morning. It must have broke pretty quick, obviously. It got out there really quick, but I was actually really surprised at how well Tim to take it. Now, I know that probably wouldn't have been the case behind closed doors. It might have been a door or something kicked it back at the apartment, I'm probably thinking, but he did actually seem to take it pretty as well as could be expected. So was it a matter of, I know you move on pretty quick, did he move on the same way, Glenn, as far as, all right, well, that's nothing we can do about it now, we've just got to get the next one and let's go?
He actually did, mate, which was a credit to him. It's part of his DNA that this is business and stuff happens. And sure, there was disappointment. Don't get me wrong. He was bitterly disappointed that his dream opportunity was being taken from him. But he also is a realist and understands this could have been him. It could have been anyone that gets hurt in training. And so very quickly, I think the fact that we made the decision very quickly that we weren't changing anything. We were going to stay in the US. We're going to continue the higher level sparring, and that it wasn't his problem anymore. It was our problem to find an appropriate replacement. And Tim trusts Matt, and Tim trusts myself. So we just head down and went about it.
So just tell us a little bit about the camp then before we move on to the Harrison situation. How was the camp? I mean, it was all over social media, of course. We got a lot of vision. So it looked like he had a really good camp, despite obviously the setback with Charlo.
It was a great camp. We did 4 weeks in Los Angeles, and as I said earlier, Justin and Jason Bell were just two terrific finds. Two big middleweight boys that literally were quite prepared to go hard on Tim and push him around and give him the work that he needed. And of course, then we moved to Las Vegas, and we opted then for the quicker, faster guys. And we had Amari Jones and a young Mexican boy, Emilio Moreno, and Ethan Smith. And these guys were just fantastic for Tim. They worked him hard. The good part of it was, mate, they were all there for Tim. They were all there to work with Tim to get Tim to where he needed to be. And I think in all aspects of the camp, the fact that we did it so differently this time, we went over, we took our chef with us. The nutrition was right. The training was right. The environment was perfect for Tim. There was no distractions. It was business. There was no visitors. We just got down and got it done. And the camp's been brilliant. And now we finish it off commencing literally this weekend in Sydney for another month, so leading into March 12.
Just got a question here for you, Glenn, from Jules H. How close are we to seeing the finished version of Tim, physical, style, mental, etc.? Should we expect to see a different version of Tim given the extensive camp?
Look, I think Tim at 28 is a magnificent work in progress. He's just improving in every aspect all the time. It was a different camp in respect of knowing that we were going up against the very, very best in the division, that we would have to emulate that in everything we did in training. So the transition from where Tim was to where he is today, you'll see on March 12th. He's getting bigger, he's getting stronger. Everything that we expected happened, and we certainly proved our point in the sparring that Tim is capable of handling these big boys, especially the 6-footers, and they're all, at the end of the day, they weigh the same. When they get into the ring, obviously there's some disparities there, a little bit heavier, a little bit lighter, But when it comes to the sparring, we really tested Tim this time, and Igor has literally worked Tim to the bone. So I think you'll see a much more mature Tim Tszyu, a much more strategic Tim Tszyu, and certainly a stronger one. So with that in mind, I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to surprise us, regardless of who we fight. It'll just come down to who brings the best game on the night.
When one thing I wanted to ask you, Glenn, is after the news broke and everything else, what happened as far as his training schedule goes? Was there a sit down as far as, okay, we're going to have to pull him back, we're going to have to alter his program? What was altered as far as, a January 28 date to potentially another couple of months down the track?
Well, if you rewind back to Christmas morning, and then it was that same day we made the decision that Igor and myself that the camp would remain in Las Vegas, and we would continue on as if January 28 was still going to happen with another opponent. So we didn't have the luxury of pulling him back, based on the fact that we were working on trying to get a fight for January 28, even though it was very, very short notice, and it quickly dissolved based on the fact that at that time of year there was only one or two, maybe three potential candidates that would fight him, none of whom would take it on that short notice. So we didn't pull him back at all, mate. In actual fact, we changed a few things in terms of the sparring. Instead of doing full sessions, there were some shorter ones, and we mixed up the sparring with the different boys just to keep it fresh. And with Tim, it doesn't matter, mate. He's such a special athlete. He rolls up every day and gives 110% every day. So it wasn't like he was tiring out or starting to fatigue. It was a long camp, but it was very well managed. And I'm pretty sure now, looking back, that the atmosphere, the camp, the housing, the accommodation, the nutrition, all played its role. And of course, the relaxation part of it on our days off. So very well balanced. And he comes home, he hits Australia fresh and motivated and focused 100% for Tony Harrison on the 12th.
Was he at least allowed to maybe cut loose a little bit on the Christmas lunch at all, or was it still we've got to keep focus?
We had a couple of days for the boys where it was a little bit relaxed, which was great because at that stage we'd been going for 5 weeks, so it was nice to have a couple of days, and the boys really enjoyed that. But mate, when it comes to Team Tszyu, with Coach Igor, there is no discussion in terms of the focus and the training program. It is what it is, and the boys are expected to roll up and do the job.
Tell us a little about the Aussies that you had to the camp, Glenn. I mentioned this on last week's show and I think it was a great concept. Obviously, there's a lot of Aussies over there that couldn't get flights home and flights changed or refunded, so they're all over there. How did you come up with the idea about bringing all the Aussies in to see him train, and how did it go?
Mate, it came about because I got lots and lots of messages through social media just asking the question, hey, we tried to get a refund, we couldn't, so we're going to bring the family and have our holiday in Vegas. Do you think there's a possibility we could see Tim train? And I let it run, and it built up and built up and built up. And so I just simply rang Tim and I said, mate, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to post a welcome to the Aussies, give them a special...
Oh, did we just lose Glenn there, I think? We'll get him back. What happened there? We'll get... hang on.
Yeah, and so...
yep, we're back.
There you go. Yeah. So, yeah, mate, we literally just invited all of the Australians that had not been able to get a refund and who were in Las Vegas to come and join us for a special session. It was an entry list, about 50 odd people rolled up, which was great. And they watched the session. They got to talk with Tim and Nikita and Igor, had some photos taken, some autographs. And it was just, I thought, the right thing to do based on the fact that these people had spent a lot of money but weren't going to see a fight. So what's the next best thing we can give them is a first-hand experience with Tim and the team.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea, mate, and I think those people that went over there would have just made it all worthwhile. I know they didn't get to see the fight, but actually to have that would have been perfect. Just as well, that could have been worse. The fight could have been in, where was the other one? You went to Minnesota or whatever. Wouldn't have been a lot to do to get a flight over there. At least they're in Vegas anyway, where they can obviously have a holiday. But no, again, a great concept. So let's go on to the Tony Harrison situation. So it probably makes sense, like you said, that time of year, really hard to get someone suitable at that standard. How did Tony Harrison's name come up, and how did it end up being signed?
Well, Tony being Tony, he came out on Christmas Day and said, hey, I'll take that fight on January 28th to save Tim Tszyu hanging around for 6 months. Now, we'd had discussions with Tony previously about bringing him to Australia early last year for a fight. And it never came to fruition, and there were a few issues there at the time. But that aside, we knew that Tony was in shape because you would see him quite often on TV. He coaches Alicia Baumgartner. And we know he'd been to the UK, and we'd seen some of their training footage, and Tony was training alongside of her. So we knew he was in shape, so we kept that up our sleeve. There was also the Russian boy, Mertzalayev, who's the IBF number one, and he's waiting in line for his mandatory opportunity as well. So negotiations started between Mertzalayev and No Limits, and with Tony Harrison and No Limits, and just to feel the water out to see whether they'd be available that early or whether we had to look at a date further down the line. And it came very quickly to pass that January 28 was not going to work. There wasn't enough time to stitch that together. And the card actually disappeared from PBC pretty much from the day Charlo hurt his hand. So it would have been starting from scratch. So we just took the option straight up that it needs to come back to Australia because now Tim's exposure in the United States is travelling beautifully, and his name is everywhere across all social medias, and the Americans are non-stop talking about him. And so options were Mertzalayev or Harrison, and the negotiations went on, and at the end of the day, Mertzalayev decided against it, and Tony Harrison was our man. So those negotiations took all but 3 days to bring to fruition. Signed the contract, sent their passports, deal done. Tim was over the moon, Igor was over the moon. The date was locked in, and now Matty and George and the boys from No Limits are seeking out the best commercial deal for a venue. And then very quickly, I think within the next few days, there'll be an announcement as to where and when tickets will go on sale.
Beautiful. I was actually going to ask you that about location. I know you can't spill the beans now, but is there a location that they're pretty settled on? And obviously you just said it's going to be maybe in a few days.
Yeah, look, it's not settled yet. There were some heavy negotiations today. It's coming down to the wire for a couple of the venues. Obviously, when you get a fight of this magnitude, the states compete nowadays, Lyndon, to see who can get these and who. And really, it comes down to a commercial deal for the promoters as to what the best commercial outcome is, the best stadium. The tickets are going to sell like hotcakes anyway. And regardless of where it is, so will the pay-per-view. So this is a 1% top-of-the-table fight between two of the best guys in the division, withstanding Jamel Charlo being injured. So this is the next best thing. So this is the only guy that's beaten Jamel Charlo. So it'll be a terrific opportunity for Tim to see exactly where he's at. And it's another stage and another step up for Tim to show everyone worldwide and all of our Australian fans just how far he's come.
Well, we all know that Melbourne is the home of sport in this country, Glenn, so hopefully it's here. If not, I'm sure everyone will fly wherever it is. But was there any talk at any stage of maybe being in the States, or was it always going to come back to Australia?
I think once we lost Charlo, mate, the reality for us was that had it been backroom Mertzalayev, that's not a huge seller in the United States. That would be a good seller here in Australia. He's got the same record as Tim. He's a mandatory for the IBF, the same as Tim. So that would have been a good fight for Australia. And of course, we'd already started that workload and that preparation for an Australian fight. So when Mertzalayev was no longer in the running for it, it was a clear walk-in for Tony Harrison. And Tony has said from day one, take me to Australia. I want to have the fight and have a holiday. He's a character, there's no doubt. And
yeah, he has, and that's probably why it's probably worked out well compared to the Russian, because I think the the Harrison, the American thing, I think it'll work really well. Now it's for the WBO interim title. So can you, first of all, would the fight have happened if the WBO title wasn't at stake? And
No.
also, can you explain how the interim situation works with the WBO and the Charlo situation and everything else?
It's fairly simple, really. What happened was the WBO went to Charlo and said, "Look, there's a couple of what paths you can take on this. There's a champion in recess that can be called if the fighter that's holding the belts is badly injured and needs time to recover. This is a crystal ball. No one, WBO, Matt Rose, myself, Tim, no one knows the outcome of Jamel's hand when it comes out of that cast. We don't know a time frame when that mandatory for the undisputed could happen. And none of us from Team Tszyu were prepared to sit Tim round, having been out of the ring for a year now, for any much longer time than was necessary. So WBO were very, very helpful. They said straight up from word go, we will create the interim title for Tim Tszyu as the number one mandatory for the WBO. But you will have to produce. You'll have to go down the WBO rankings until you find the appropriate opponent. And of course, Tony Harrison was next in line. So we didn't have to go far down the line, mate. So I think we've been very lucky and blessed that Tony Harrison was in shape and be prepared to take this fight, Lyndon, because it's so rare to get top caliber 1% fight on short notice. Even though Tony's got 8 weeks, that's a good camp. But to be able to stitch the fight together in that 8-week period is a credit to the boys from No Limits.
Well, there's a reason they're the best in the business, isn't there? No Limit. I've got a question here from James. Glenn, what's going on with Tim's WBA and IBF rankings?
Oh, look, the WBA, he doesn't have a ranking in, mate. They chose some time ago to remove Tim from those rankings.
Why is that, Glenn? Because he was the WBA Oceania champion, so it was sort of been an automatic ranking.
He was. There were some dealings that went on that didn't go well. There were just some problems that I won't go into. It's commercial in confidence stuff, but look, we don't control their decisions, and we certainly haven't pursued it since, because Tim's been plenty busy with his rankings in every other division. So the IBF, his ranking, I haven't even looked at the moment, but as far as I know, it's still fairly high with the IBF.
I think one with the WBC as well, I think.
Yes, mate. Yeah, so he's very well positioned, and as he should be. I mean, he's at that time of his career now where the only fights are those in front for Tim. He's got to fight the very best, and I guess we would have known today, mate, that Tim would be the undisputed champion today, and we should be celebrating that. But the reality is that we've got another very big job in front of us, and I'm very confident in Tim's ability and Tim's focus and desire to keep on going. And we all accept that it's a very, very risky prospect, and we could lose our mandatory position for the undisputed. But you do have to ask yourself the question: if Tim is fighting Jamel Charlo for undisputed, it's very difficult as a manager or a coach or a fighter to then take lesser opponents just to stay in the game. That time's come and gone for Tim, and now it's risk v reward. Not so much. Now there is a big risk here for Tim, and he has to step up and he has to win this fight, and we have to move on to Charlo. Should that not happen, then that's something we'll deal with following. We don't discuss that. We never ever discuss should that not happen. For us, it's just another opportunity for Tim to perform at the very highest level.
Yeah, well, it's not really a step back, is it? It's actually just step to the side for the meantime, and hopefully get the WBO, and then we step forward back the other way to Charlo. So it's an interesting situation. I know it's obviously way too early, but there's an indication if all goes according to plan, maybe when we might see Jamel Charlo, Tim Tszyu, if he gets through that, and Tim obviously wins the interim belt.
We've submitted some dates, mate, that we believe, depending on Jamel's recovery, he's got 2 months in a cast, then he's got 2 months of rehab, and then he's got a camp. So it's a substantial chunk of time. We submitted a date mid-year, and we'll see if he can come to that. If not, we, of course, have to remain flexible. It's still our number one priority, the undisputed, of course it is. But the reality is that we may have to, it may be towards middle to end of year. We just don't know. But one thing I can assure all Tim's fans and everybody listening is that regardless of Jamel Charlo. That's on him now. He's got to do the work now. We will continue onwards, and we will fight another fight in between, should it come to the fact that Tim would otherwise be sitting around twiddling his thumbs. That's not him. He won't do that. He's a fighter first and foremost, and his instructions to me are pretty simple. This 1 year out of the ring, partially because we had the repairs done on his knuckles, but secondly because of the delays getting Charlo into the ring. So, look, anything's possible at this level, and boxing's a crystal ball, and you just don't know what's going to be waiting around the corner. But rest assured, all of us at Team Tszyu focused on staying busy, and you'll see Tim fight again and again, and then ultimately keep on winning, and nothing changes in terms of his mandatory.
Yeah, well, the good thing is when he wins the belts, there's plenty of other really good guys around from the fighters now. Obviously, the Spence maybe coming up. There might be Crawford. There's obviously Fundora. There's up to middleweight. Just so many options for him, and I think, in a way, when Tim beats Harrison, it probably makes, we all know it's going to be massive in Australia, but it actually probably makes it bigger in the States, doesn't it, if he's got that win over Harrison going into the Charlo fight?
Absolutely. We've done so much media in the United States on podcast stuff and chatting with some of the guys that literally have everybody's ear in America. And right now, the interesting part is Tim Tszyu has created a bit of a wave, because it's almost unheard of in the United States at the moment that fighters are taking risks and fighters are taking on fights and not worrying about belts and not worrying about records and not worrying about egos. And so it's hit a chord, and everybody is celebrating the fact that Tim and Tony Harrison are getting it on March the 12th. And there's been very little said about Jamel Charlo. He's sort of been the forgotten fighter now in this. So, in fairness to him, a broken hand's miserable for a fighter. We'll give him his chance to recover, and we'll certainly be looking forward to getting back into the next camp. Should Jamel be ready, we make sure Tim will absolutely be ready.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? It probably shows the state of play in the boxing world when people are actually surprised that someone's actually taking a risk in a fight. Because this day and age, it's all about playing it safe, keeping the records, Instagram likes, all that sort of stuff. And you're right, it's probably more people surprised by the fact that Tim's saying, yeah, I don't care about that. I want the next one in line, because it's so unheard of these days.
It really is. And some of those big names you mentioned before, Errol Spence and the likes, that have come out and said that they're going to come up to 154. Well, Tim's response was fairly swift to that. He said, yeah, I'll take that, no problem. And everyone's going, wow, this kid doesn't seem to be too scared of anyone. It's not about being scared, mate. He's a fighter first and foremost, and he's a very special athlete. And this kid, he believes in himself. We believe in him. We know just how tough it's going to be, and we know that there are no guarantees in boxing. But he won't die wondering, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's going to be an amazing build-up, hopefully. So just another question. I know we won't keep you too long, Glenn, but just with the March 12th fight, regardless of where it is, now it's going to be an even bigger occasion because little brother's going to be on the card as well.
Yeah, fantastic, isn't it? Nikita's in Las Vegas with the boys now in camp, and Igor's been working him through, and he's been training back at home with Mark Gambin and Grandpa, and of course, he actually celebrated his birthday over there, which was wonderful. And so, yeah, it's really exciting. This is a first time for the boys to be on the same cards. And Nikita will be on a bit earlier in the TV telecast so that Igor can spread his time and our team can spread our attention across two fighters on such a big night. But, yeah, very exciting. I'm excited for the boys. I'm excited for the family. And I think it's a wonderful thing for the fans. It's a double header to have the Tszyu boys on the same card.
Yeah, it should be. I'm sure Mum will be happy with that. It looks like she gets a little bit stressed at the best of times, let alone having two on there. Now, will Costa come down for this fight, Glenn, or is he going to wait for the American one?
Look, it's something Costa and I are actually talking about right now as we speak. It's a little difficult out of Russia at the moment. Everything's difficult out of Russia at the moment. Yep. It's not out of the question. It may be a timing issue that we might not see him until Charlo in the United States. But having said that, don't be surprised if he turns up and we can get him here. We'll work towards that. That would be wonderful to have the three generations of the boys all there at the ringside, and I'd love to see that too. And it'd be great to have a little reunion on March the 12th. But if not, he'll be there in spirit, and we'll see him hopefully in the US for Charlo.
Well, just before I let you go, Glenn, just a little bit of an update on the situation with Shannon. Of course, you touched on it at the start of the interview that you went to England with Shannon O'Connell. Just give us a little bit of a briefing of your view of it. I've spoken to Shannon a few times on the phone, but not obviously on here till she's ready. But just a little bit of your feedback about the whole event and what went down.
Oh, look, it was a tough event, mate. It's always. There's no excuses here, none whatsoever. The reality is, it's always a difficult task to go to the UK in the middle of winter and win a world title. And look, credit to Mark Tibbs and Ebony. Ebony won the fight. For Shannon, the disappointing part and the difficult part for her was that the left shoulder that had been rebuilt was deteriorating to a point where she was still going through the motions and doing well in training and sparring, but the pain threshold was starting to wear thin, and the shoulder was starting to play up a little bit. And we gave her a break over there, Lyndon, to see if we could freshen it up, and we hoped on the back of that we would get enough rounds out of that damn thing to win the fight. I think that in reality it probably lasted 2 or 3. And then it's very difficult to hold off Ebony Bridges. She's very strong, very come forward, and unless you've got a jab that's effective, you're going to be in trouble. And look, she lasted 8 rounds, which to me was pretty amazing considering. And it didn't finish the way we would have liked it. The referee called it. That was a fair call too. Nobody wants to see anyone get hurt or injured. Yep. We had no issue with that. Shannon was bitterly disappointed. That's the way it goes in boxing. But she's a pretty exceptional athlete as well, and she looked at it pragmatically. That on the night she got beaten, and that's the way it goes. And there was a bit of stick at the end of it, mate. As you know, a little bit of back and forth, and that was probably the explosion of emotion at the end of it for Shannon. It was quite possibly her knowing that it may well be the end of her career. But we sent her straight back to Australia, straight into consultations with the surgeon, and she's since had another major operation and a partial replacement of the shoulder. Literally, they removed chunks of bone that had sheared off the rotator cuff and the ball and replaced it. And now we see her commencing her rehab, and it's an open book as to what happens from here, whether she's capable of continuing on. I know she wants to, but whether or not that shoulder actually allows it and the surgeons give her a clearance to do so, that's yet to be seen. But look, 20 years in the game, mate, there's nothing left for her to prove. I don't believe we'll see another, apart from Susie Ramadan, I don't think we'll see another long-term 20-year girl in the sport. It's evolving so quickly. It's becoming such a more competitive sport. I just don't see 20 years for the girls being able to run a career the length Shannon did. So that's why she's known as the Queen of Australian boxing. 20 years is an amazing career, and we'll see what happens with her, mate. We'll see what the outcome is. If the shoulder makes it the end of her career, then it's been a wonderful career. If she gets the opportunity to do 1 or 2 more, or perhaps a farewell fight, well, that'd be lovely too.
Yeah, it would be. And look, I know you can't say too much, but we're a little bit disappointed in some of the comments and that, the social media tidal wave after the fight against Shannon. I mean, I've commented on here a few times. Again, I know you can't say too much. Was it a little bit disappointing to see some of the vitriol coming her way?
Yes, it was. And it comes with the territory. When you invite that in, you should expect that you're going to cop that. But Shannon being Shannon, she just tells it how it is, and she plays her cards out in front, and she paid a price for the actions. And look, at the end of the day, I don't have a lot to say about that, because it's I've said to her many times, social media can be a wonderful thing, but it can also be an absolute hurtful, and it'll punish you for everything that you do that allows them to punish you. So I think in a perfect world, if you turned your phone off, it would have been a better outcome. But it's done, and
Yeah.
it passes over time. And I personally and really do hope that they remember Shannon for the great female pioneer that she was, rather than a moment of emotional finger in the air and words that probably shouldn't have been said. But
Yeah, you're right.
um,
Yeah.
that
When the
that's
dust
that's in
tends
a
to settle,
nutshell.
I'm sure that everyone will acknowledge the career she's had. I've just got a question, just to go back a little bit, Glenn, before I let
No,
you
you're
go.
right,
This
mate.
is about
No,
Nikita.
no problem.
This is from Jules again. Thanks for the earlier response, Glenn. Will Nikita be fast tracked, given where he is at, versus Tim after 4 fights? And will Nikita contend at junior middleweight while Tim is still around?
No, there is no fast tracking for athletes, especially in this sport. Um, it's easy to forget that Nikita was out of the ring for 7 years, and it's easy to forget that Nikita, prior to that, was an amateur. So he's had no professional experience, and it is a different animal. And so he is learning the professional craft, and it's going to take him some time. And there's no discussions between Igor and I about rushing him along at all. In fact, we'll keep him busy, as we did with Tim, 3 or 4 fights a year. But in all honesty, I'm a big believer in uh, time will give these guys the maturity they need to handle the next level of fighters. And I think that it's a fair sort of line to draw. I just think personally, for me, 12 fights into their career, I could probably say their rookie period is over, and they're starting to then look at the next level and some overseas competition. But yeah, look, Nikita's a talent, but he's got a lot to learn, and he admits that, and so does Igor. So no, certainly no fast tracking from myself or from our team. It's he's only a young man. He's only 23 years old, and he's got a lot of time. So it's not boxing's not a race, mate. It's all about um, health and welfare and making sure that these boys get to where you want them to get to, but capable of finishing their sport in good health, with good welfare, and in a great future position.
And it must be hard as a manager because you can't win because if you fast track them, as they say, and they happen to lose, then you get accused of pushing them too quickly. And if they take the time and get the rounds that they need, you're accused of feeding them softies. You can't win. But I don't know. I wouldn't be a manager for the life of me, mate. But you've obviously been doing it for quite some time.
That's a fair call. I mean, a good manager's got to have a pretty thick skin. And at the end of the day, I think if you're just honest with everybody, and as you know, I'm a big believer in fan engagement. I'm a big believer in sponsors and making sure everybody that contributes to the success of the boys gets recognition, and including our team. And the hard work that goes on behind what everybody sees is, for me, it's a full time job. These two boys, and with Shannon last year, it's a full time job. And it's either 100% commitment and give it all you've got, and have these boys achieve what they want, and then walk away from it knowing that it's been 100% and you've given it all. It's the only way to go. I don't believe you can be a manager and shortcut any of it, and that's why I feel the way I do about not racing these guys through, because I'm responsible for their health, I'm responsible for their wealth, and I'm responsible for their future. So um, I think about that every day, and I'm very serious about that. And granted, it's a dangerous sport, but I also believe that at the right pace and the right maturity levels and the right opposition brings these guys along at a certain level. And you should step up every time. You don't want to be stepping sideways too often, and you certainly don't want to go backwards. And you'll see with Tim and Nikita, there'll be very similar patterns in their rollout. Nikita will follow the path of Tim because it worked. It worked very well for Tim.
Now, just on the March 12th event, Glenn, of course we can't get into opponents and that sort of stuff, but is there, apart from Nikita and Tim, is there anyone else that we should be looking out for on the undercard? Any no limit young guns or girls?
I think you'll find that George and Maddie are going to have a big splash very soon on that, mate. So, as you know, I'm a big fan of the Rose Boys, and I don't like to take their opportunity away for them to shine. So, I'm a manager, and I tend to stay in my lane, away from what the promoters do. I'll support them all day long, but I'll leave it to them to make that announcement, mate. If that's
Yeah.
cool with you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And just on No Limit, look, who would have known, what was it, was it 4 years ago that,
Yeah, it'd probably be with No Limit. It was fight 13 for Tim, so it'd be 3 years ago
Yeah.
that we. And I've got to say that it's probably been probably the best decision I could have made for Tim, to be honest, in terms of everything, where he is today, financial outcomes, his placement in the world of boxing, his placement as the face of Australian boxing, his sponsorships. I mean, he is the highest paid sponsored fighter in this country, and that continues to grow on a monthly basis. And so No Limits played a huge role in that. They gave us the platform and they grew with us. And Tim has equally been responsible for their growth as they have for ours. So it is very much a partnership that we're very respectful of, and we look after each other's interests all the time. And I can't see us going anywhere else.
Yeah, it's amazing. The thing I was just going to say was it 3 or 4 years ago, whatever it was, that they took a chance by, well, you guys obviously took a chance by signing with No Limit because there was other options out there. They took the chance because they had to invest and live up to their investment. But who would have thought when the Joel Camilleri fight was the first one, it was on pay-per-view, I remember thinking to myself, geez, how are they going to sell this on pay-per-view? And who would have thought here we are, those amount of years later, Tim's a behemoth as far as pay-per-view go. They've got a complete monopoly pretty much of the whole TV in this country. Everyone wants to be part of the No Limit stable. It's just an unbelievable rise from where they've come from.
Look, yeah, and they've worked very hard to achieve that, and the quality of their shows and their production levels, and also the fact that they, you mentioned it earlier, the word invest, that it's a rarity in boxing today where promoters actually invest in their fighters. They spend, in some cases, far and above what they get back early in these fighters' careers, and it's a gamble. And with Tim and with myself, that whole process was always based on the fact that we believed that Tim had the goods, and we believed that Tim would be the next ambassador for Australian boxing, and it's turned out better than we could have hoped for. We've got Nikita coming through now, and as you said, Matt and George are going ahead in leaps and bounds, and they're signing some great fighters. So yeah, look, the future is wonderful for Australian boxing. We have so much talent. Liam Wilson this weekend. All eyes should be on Liam Wilson. We can go back to Tim next week, but this is Liam Wilson's week, and I'm supporting him 100%. And let's hope Liam brings home the belt. And any of the other Aussie boys that are coming through that get that opportunity, Tim Tszyu will be backing every single one of them, because at the end of the day, Australia is a small bowl in boxing with a little fish. So when we get the chance to go over there, we should back our boys 100% and bring home the gold. And it's certainly a gold time for Australian boxing, mate, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah, and you're right. Well, we've talked about on this show many times that it's debatable as far as whether the talent's the best of all time. If people of all different generations are going to argue about that, but what I always say is that the opportunities for Aussie fighters has never been better. With obviously No Limit, it's obviously D&L. There's now Eddie Hearn, and giving all these fighters, and obviously No Limit are leading the way. But it's just amazing the amount of opportunities that all these fighters got. There's probably a dozen Aussie fighters out there at the moment. They're all on the cusp of world title fights.
Absolutely, and look, every one of those promoters that has put in the time and brought those kids along to give them this opportunity should be given a round of applause, based on the fact that they are the guys who created the platform for these young fellas to come forward. And it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's No Limits. There are so many promoters busting their ass week in, week out, putting on shows to showcase the talent. The talent will rise. The greatest ones will rise to the top, and the greatest ones will win the world titles. They can't do it alone. The promoters, the managers, the coaches, the gyms, everyone plays a role. And everybody right now, Australian boxing should give itself a round of applause, because all of a sudden, I think there's more than 12. I would say the number's closer to 20 of the actual guys who are right now on the cusp of international stardom and an opportunity to fight for a title. And that's just fantastic. And we're just happy. Tim Tszyu's just happy that we had the opportunity to be one of the first ones out of the gate with Tim, and he's created a movement and certainly given more light on Australia from the United States and the UK, and the Shannon O'Connells of the world, and look at all those that list, mate. The Maloneys, Liam Parrow. I could go on all night talking about how many boys are going to make Australia proud, and I'm just a proud manager myself, mate. So, end of the day, we've had some brilliant fighters in the past, and I think we're going into a period now where this will be another brilliant period. And when it's all said and done, and this era is gone, hopefully they've created enough interest to bring the kids into the gym, and they come on for the next generation. So it's all positive.
Yeah, every generation seems to have it. We've actually seen, we've had a few in our generation. I mean, there was back in the day, obviously there was Rose and Famishon and all. Then, of course, come the Fenix and the Alice's, and then we're into the Jeff Horn. But now all of a sudden we've gone from Cambosis into Zoo, and obviously the girls.
Yep.
There's just that much going on. And maybe Wilson this week, and it's just amazing to think that. And you're right, there's that many off the top of the head. Maloney's, you could have Jason fighting Nito Donaire, you could have Andrew fighting Estrada. It's just what a year this could be for Aussie boxing if it's not more than what we've had in the last couple of years.
It just goes on and on, that list, and Liam Wilson fighting Navarrete. I mean, these are top end fights, mate. There's no room for complacency at this level. You've got to go out there and put on the fight of your life, and that's the only way you get to bring that strap home. But gosh, if someone had said to me 10 years ago, do you ever think we'll see another era of excitement like Kostya's era or Jeff Fenix era or Lionel Rose era, I would have to say no. And look where we are today, 2024. We've got 20 of the super impressive young men and women that are leading the charge, either already carrying belts, already world champions, or about to have their opportunity. It's exciting time, mate. And everybody in that history, all of those fighters that came through, all played a role, mate, because every one of them put the light on Australia.
They did, and then apologies there to Jai Patara as well. We didn't even mention him. What an effort his was as well last year. So just amazing effort.
Oh, look, Jai Apatow is right at the list, mate. At the end of the day, if in my lifetime I see anyone who performs at that courage level again, I'd be surprised. Yeah. That was, for me, a phenomenal effort. I texted him quite a few times after that, because we're good mates, and I just in awe of what he did that night under those conditions. And of course, all he could do was text back. There was no way he could talk. But I spoke with Mick Francis just this week, and you've got Justice Honey, you've got Jai Opataya, you've got Shanika Johnson, who's a champion, you've got Ebony Bridges, who's a champion, you've got the list of the boys. Dempsey McKean's on the radar now.
Stevie Spark.
Stevie Spark, Isaac Harbin,
Liam Parrow.
Michael Zarafa's back in the mix. He's getting active again. Mate, there's so much to be happy about. And if I sound a little bit excited, I am, because I've got March 12th coming up with my two boys on there with a host of other talent. And I'm going to watch Liam this weekend. And I'm just looking forward to what this year brings. And I wish every coach, manager and fighter all the very best with their fights and their health. And let's just hope we can keep rolling it on, mate.
Exactly, mate. Well, almost there. I've just got another question for you. I know you probably got a bit on, but we've got you on here. I'm going to make the most of it.
No, I'm happy to be on here with you, mate.
No, that's great, mate. Now, the question I've got is, it was raised a couple of days ago by Nick Noonan. Now, he was describing the Liam Parrow, Teofimo Lopez situation, comparing it to the Charlo and Tim situation. Do you think there's a comparison there, and they've got a case to say, hey, we want the same thing? What's going on with Tim and Harrison?
I actually do, mate. I do believe there's a parallel there, based on the fact that you can't just lock up a belt. I don't believe you should be able to lock up a belt. The belts should be travelling based on who is available and who can fight. It's sad in some respects that some of the fighters that carry the belts don't fight for 2 years. And the sad part's not the guy that's got the belts. The sad part's the boys that are mandatory and in the top 5 who don't get an opportunity to perform their craft, and they should have that opportunity. So, yeah, look, I'm sure Angelo and Liam's people are all over that, and I'm sure they'll be lobbying the association to say, hey, if it's good for one, it should be good for all. And there's certainly a precedent there that if somebody can't fight for any given reason, and generally based on an injury that no one knows what the return date's going to be, allow them to have an interim fight, and whoever wins that takes that, goes back and fights that guy when he recovers. I mean, that makes sense to me. And I think I would love to see that happen. I'd love to see Liam get that opportunity.
Because you can sense there's a lot of frustration out there amongst the fans at the moment, because fans obviously want to see the fights and they want to see the belts continually being fought for. I think we can all understand that injuries happen and you've got to give the champion every chance. But if they're going to be tied up from 6 to 12 months, I'm with you. I think keep it rolling. And as I said, I mean, we've got the Crawford-Spence situation at the moment, and Usyk and Fury and all these other fights that are proposed to happen and just aren't. So you just look at the moment. I think fight fans around the world have never really been more frustrated, because I know back when I was, in my teens or 20s, whatever, there was big fights all the time. We just don't see that anymore. We see 1 or 2 a year.
I think the problem is there's just way too much talk, and the talk is becoming a TV production in itself.
Yeah,
they're spending 20 minutes in the ring now before major fights talking. That's not what we're here for. We're here to see the fights, and I'm just a believer in the fact that there is a system in place that's been in place for the history of boxing, and it's called rankings, and it gives every fighter an opportunity to climb a ladder, and at the top of the ladder there's a guy standing there with a belt. If you are lucky enough to get to that top of that ladder, to the number one mandatory, the associations should immediately allow you to take that fight. Should something happen where the champion can't facilitate that fight, whether it be through injury or through recess or whatever the case may be, the rules are there, mate. The rules are there for the commissions to say, if you can't fight by this date, we will sanction an interim fight, allow the next 2 guys beneath you to fight, and the winner of that fight will fight you once you make that recovery by a certain date. I think the difference, mate, is that No Limits and myself lobby very hard. And it seems to me that the commissions react to the lobbying, to going to them and saying, we're not asking you to create a rule, we're asking you to enforce a rule. We want you to follow your own rule book, and it quite clearly says that we are entitled to this, we want this. And if you have a relationship with those commissions, and nearly all promoters do, that should be common ground there, rather than just say, you know what, the guy at the top, whoever he might be, is going to be out for potentially 1, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years. That destroys the ladder underneath, and you see guys disappear. And that's really sad. That's a really, really sad indictment on boxing, when guys disappear from the sport because they never got their opportunity that they should have and were entitled to.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I think, the underlying point I think of all of this is that maybe the sanctioning bodies are the ones that need to pull the finger out, like you said, because they're the ones that got to say, these are our rules and this is what's going to happen. Because at the moment, they're allowed, Jamal Charlo's, it have been 18 months or something, and he hasn't got a fight scheduled. He hasn't been injured, but he's allowed to get away with it.
Yeah, and it's bizarre, isn't it, when you consider that the sanctioning bodies actually gain their revenue from the sanction fees when they fight. Yeah. Not sitting on a lounge at home when they fight. So I just think that if, and as I said, I'm sure Angelo Di Carlo and his people are all over this because he's one of the best in the business. But I'm sure they're all over it on Liam's behalf because it makes sense. If somebody can't fight, allow the next 2 to fight for it.
Well, it's a great precedent,
isn't it? Not like we're saying, it's not like we're requesting that the champion gets dissolved. He's still there. He's still the champion, but you get the opportunity to fight him upon recovery. And I think that's a fair outcome because it's a brutal sport, and you can't discount the fact that during training, people will get hurt and they may have to disappear for a while. I don't believe that should shut down the division. It should be live, it should be constantly moving, and it should engage with the fans and keep them engaged. I guarantee you now that all of those middleweight fans that were Jamal Charlo fans, half of them are gone somewhere else. No, you don't even see the guy.
And the shame of that whole matter with Jamal Charlo, there's some massive fights for him out there, isn't there? I mean, there's so many out there, and he's just sitting there, and he's holding that WBC belt to ransom.
Yeah, look, you hear lots of stories about different fighters with different promoters and how some promoters tend to hold things up, and others have agendas to not have their fighters fight, and they're hanging on to the belts. What's the point of? I just don't get the point of hanging onto a belt if you're not fighting. This is a boxing belt. It's not a sit-at-home belt. I don't mean to be, sort of facetious about it. The reality is that for the fans, and boxing is for the fans, and sure, there's money to be made, but gosh, if you had 3 or 4 fights a year, you can't tell me that being busy and staying busy and having a great fan base, that you wouldn't make more money doing it that way than sitting at home, not fighting.
And again, we've discussed it on here, but you look at the Bud Crawford and Crawford and Spence situation. Now they do fight, even if it's in the next 12 months. They'll both be in their mid-30s, I think it is, or 35, 36, whatever it might be. Now Leonard and Hearns fought for the second time, and they were both in the early 30s, and were thought to be way past their prime. And these guys haven't even fought once, and they're 3 or 4 years older. It's just ridiculous.
Very true, mate. The reality is for these elite athletes in boxing that their window of opportunity is very small. It's not a long time sport. You're in and out at your prime very, very over a very short window. So, look, we do think very differently, and I hope that it's a breath of fresh air into boxing the way that we go about business with Tim, because at the end of the day, yes, he's mandatory, and yes, he has a chance to fight for the undisputed, but at what cost? So he's a fighter, and he'll tell you that. I'm a fighter first, and our job is to allow him to fight. So that's I would love to think that would be the normal, but it's not. And I think it'll be a cycle thing that hopefully improves. But that's out of my hands, mate. That's out of all of our hands. That's in the hands of the sanctioning bodies to start flexing their muscle and using their rule book to make sure people fight.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. Well, I won't keep you any longer, Glenn, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. It's been nearly an hour, so I really appreciate your time. I know you probably you got a bit on at the moment, and obviously the boys will be home in a couple of days. But, mate, I'm sure I'll speak for everyone out there watching that we really appreciate you coming on and the answers you've given tonight.
My pleasure, mate. It's always good to catch up with you, and look forward to an announcement soon about March 12th, and look forward to seeing all of you guys down wherever we are. And go.
You said down there. You just said down.
Did I?
I'm joking. I'm just grasping the straws a bit here.
Mate, you Melbourne people, you never miss a chance, do you?
No. Well,
I don't know where it's going, mate. I don't know where it's going, but we are all New South Welshmen up here, so.
Yeah. Well, he's come he's come a long way from, what was it, Bendigo at the end of 2018 it was. Who would have thought he'd be here in 2023 about to do what he's going to do? It's amazing. And a credit to you.
You know what, mate? We still have fond memories of Bendigo, and that was for us a great promotion, and we loved our time pre No Limits, travelling around the country, fighting in regional towns. And the beauty of it is we've retained all of those regional towns, supporters and fan base, and it's clearly evident in the pay-per-view numbers. So it's wonderful. It's a payback. It's a gift that keeps giving. You go out and travel around those countries, and they're around those regional areas, and they'll support you forever.
Yeah, no, exactly right, mate. Well, thanks again. You have a good night up there, and look forward to hearing all the news when it's announced. We'll even look more forward to later in the year. Well, obviously March 12th I'll be there, but later in the year, hopefully back in Vegas and living up over there. So thanks again, mate, and have a good one.
Thanks for having me on, mate. Bye.
Bye-bye. Wow, so that was Glenn Jennings. What an interview that was, eh? Who would have thought that he gave up about an hour of his time? So as you can see there, nothing's ever too hard for Glenn. He tells it the way it is, and there's a reason why the boys that are under him absolutely love him. They trust him, and obviously got the score on the board. So. Yeah, I think I covered nearly everything there. I'm sorry if I missed a few things that were coming. There was a few questions coming through, so I hope I've answered most of them. But as I said, Glenn, nothing's ever too hard for him. He's always looking to come on these types of shows and interact with the fans out there. And there's probably no coincidence that his fighters always reach the top, and they're always loved by the fans. So. Guys, if we've got a couple other things to go through there, if you've got some more questions or comments you'd like to make, bring them through. We'll keep going for a little while longer as long as the comments come. As Glenn said before, we've got Liam Wilson and Emmanuel Navarrete this weekend. Who have you got? Look, I think Liam can definitely win. Look, it's the odds are pretty long. Let's not beat around the bush. Navarrete is a beast of a fighter, but one thing that Liam has is that whipping left hook, and I'll give him a real opportunity to to maybe land the shot and take the title. You got to put yourself in this position. We spoke about when Horn fought Pacquiao. We spoke about it when Kambosos fought Lopez, and we've spoken about it back in the day when Fenech fought Nelson. I know he didn't get the win, but we know what happened there. But you know what I mean? Like, it's Harding against Andrews. You've got to put yourself in the position to win, and that's what Liam Wilson's doing. So I think it's on 10:30 Saturday morning on Fox. Now, that's southeastern Australian time, so I'm not quite sure what it is in Queensland. I think it's an hour later in Queensland, I think it is. And Perth and South Australia, I'm not quite sure. Thanks, Jules. Appreciate that, mate. Great interview. Well, I just pretty much let Glenn go, as you saw there, and he just let the comments go. And what I really like about it, as I said at the start of the interview or the start of the show, is that yes, we could get Tim on or we can get someone else on, but you're just going to get the same answers that we're going to have to ask the same questions and get the same answers that probably would from 10 or 12 different outlets. You would have seen there the input from Glenn is something you just can't get from anyone else. He's the manager. He sits in all the meetings. Maybe the promoters might give us a little bit more insight, but you just get something when you talk to the guys that just don't put themselves in the public eye all the time, but are there. You get a little bit of input than what you get from the fighters who aren't always privy to everything. So again, great interview from Glenn. What do we got there? From Mohammed. Thanks, Lyndon. This is the best source of information in this show. Oh, thanks, mate. Really appreciate that, Mohammed. We're only a small show, but we try and bring a little bit of information to you guys that you might not get on some of the other bigger channels. And that's why I actually started this show, is that anyone can sort of get on there and do what most of these guys do. I wanted to do something a little bit different, so our viewers and followers could maybe get something, as I said, from us that they might not get from some of the other networks or channels. They're all different. We all need them in different ways, but a lot of people have different things they like to hear and see about, and this is what we're trying to bring here. Andy Navarrete, no joke, dude, definitely a beast. Yeah, the only thing I will say, Andy, is that I just think from what I've seen of him, look, he's obviously a beast. He can punch. If Liam stands in front of him, it could be a pretty tough night for Liam. Let's not, again, as I said, beat around the bush. But if Liam gives him a bit of, like, Liam's very, very fast, good footwork, good, defence probably needs some work, and probably not the sort of guy you want to be facing if you need some work on defence. But he's very quick. As I said, he's fast. He's got that left hook. Navarrete's not overly quick. Yes, he comes at you and throws bombs, but you've got to stand in front of these guys for them to have maximum effect. And I think if Liam doesn't stand in front of him, gives him a bit of lateral movement, really gives him some combination, really whips that left hook in there, I think he can catch Navarrete, because he comes in, and you'll get a lot of those types of fighters, they're beasts, and they come in, they almost forget about defence, because they're used to wiping these guys out with their punches. Sometimes you saw it with Douglas versus Tyson and these types of guys, the bullies, I suppose you'll call them. You stand up to them and give them a few punches back. Sometimes they don't handle it in the best way. And I just think Liam Wilson, I can tell by his comments from what I'm seeing and what I'm reading, he thinks this is his destiny. He's not just going over there for a payday and to say I fought for a world title. He's going over there expecting to win. Well, he's over there already, of course. He's going in expecting to win. So that type of fighter is very dangerous. And look, as I said, the odds are quite rightly stacked against him. Navarrete should be the overwhelming favourite. All I'm saying is that Liam Wilson might just surprise a few people, especially if Navarrete comes in with those hands down and Wilson lands some of those vicious punches. He doesn't look like he can punch, but he can. So maybe it's wishful thinking, but I think he's in with a real chance. D-style boxing. Navarrete is tough, but he's been getting figured out a little. There you go. You agree, mate. So, yeah, and look, Benny Harrington over there, look, he's not just going to send his guy in to get knocked out. He's going to have a plan. They know all about Navarrete, but Navarrete, I would suspect, probably knows nothing about Liam Wilson. Might not even bothered to even watch him. I'm hoping they would have for the professionals, but this is how upsets occur. And I just think maybe they're underestimating Liam Wilson. And who knows? All I know is I'll be, as they say in America, rooting for Liam Wilson because I just think he's a real chance. I really do. Hopefully I'm not sitting here next Monday night with egg all over my face, but I think win or lose, he's going to give a very good account of himself. Jules says, is Wilson being underrated for this fight? Yes, I just said that. Some agencies have him 10-1. Is that right against Navarrete? It's fair. I think it is fair, Jules, to be honest with you. Wilson's had 12 fights. He's totally unknown all over the world, apart from Australia, of course. And even in Australia, he's not really well known unless you're really in the mix. So 10-1, no, I don't think it's far-fetched. I think fighter for fighter, I think it's a bit far-fetched. But for what they've both achieved, I mean, Navarrete's going for his third world title. 37 fights, 36 wins, hasn't been beaten since wherever it was, a long time ago, right at the start of his career. I think it was his fifth or sixth fight he got beaten. So quite right, the 10-1 favourite. But as I said, fighter, head-to-head, no way it should be 10-1. But I'm not going to argue with the odds there because they can only go by records and rankings and everything else. So Navarrete looked more human versus Joe. Yeah, he did. Eric, I think he really did too. And from what I saw in that fight, look, as I said, I might be sitting here next week with egg on my face. I've got a gut feeling like I do with all these Aussies that go against these guys overseas. He's coming to win. There's a big difference. He's not just saying, hey, I'll take the fight and I'll jump in and get paid whatever he's going to get paid and all good. He's going in there to win. And a fighter like that is very dangerous, especially one with the talent of Liam Wilson. So is 12 fights enough and the experience level enough against Navarrete? I suppose we'll see. But I've just seen Liam Wilson wipe out guys with that left hook. And doesn't matter what caliber or what experience or whatever it is you've got, anyone get tipped with that shot, it could be a good night. So that's what I'm giving him a chance. Thanks, Stephen. Let's go, Liam. Yep, 100%, mate. And he's a good guy too. I had him on one of my shows about 2 years ago, I think it was, 3 years ago it was. Such a really good guy, real character. I think he's matured a little bit from then. He's probably a little bit immature early in his career, but I think he's really matured now. Obviously, he's got the family and the kids and all that sort of stuff. So, just a really, really good guy, and I really hope the best for him because, he's a true Aussie battler, and I hope he gets the win. James says, thoughts on Beterbiev and Yarde beating each other up. Then it was waved off by TKO and they were best friends. Yeah. Surprisingly, Yard was in front. The scores there. He was in front 68-65, 67-66, and Beterbiev was in front 67-66 on the other card. I thought that Beterbiev might have been in front by a point or two, but there's some close rounds in there. I do think that Yard was maybe, what was it, the 8th round, was starting to wind down. Beterbiev was starting to land a few. I hope I'm right. I just thought he started to maybe think it might have been a bit too tough. I don't like to go against any professional fighter or any athlete, especially fighters that get in there and give their all. I just think he was starting to tire. The punches were starting to have an effect. Beterbiev was really starting to put it on. I just think he was like, you know what, I've done pretty well. I think, that might be the night. I don't know. But I know he protested to the referee. I don't think he was that upset about it being stopped between me and you guys out there. Maybe I'm wrong, but good fight though. But as I said, I thought Beterbiev was in front by a round or two. A few comments coming through here, guys. I'll try to get through them. Wilson has a very good resume for not many fights. Yeah, sort of, James. He's fought some solid guys. I don't think he's fought anyone really at that top level yet. I know Noine was good and Qualis, I think, who was it? Because he fought him on my show. I think it was got knockout of the year, that one. That left hook from hell. I'd say they're world class, but I don't think they're elite, if that makes sense. But good for him. Like, what sort of happened with Liam Wilson? We spoke about it with Glenn before. You've got to give these guys the relevant opponents at the relevant time. Now, I think all the opponents that Liam's had, Noine obviously upset the uppercut, but he avenged that. So I think all the opponents he's had have been the right opponents at the right time. So they've done a great job putting him through. The issue with this one is that the opportunities come probably 5 or 6 fights ahead of schedule. And like all the others before him. You've got to take your opportunity. These opportunities come, you take them with both hands, regardless of how many fights you've had, because you might not get an opportunity. Let's remember, 2 fights back, he got knocked out by Joe Noyne. Now, here we are, fighting Navarrete in America for the WBO title. Things can change. So, you've got to take your opportunities. And, I don't think his opponents have been great opponents, but they've been the right opponents for him at the right stage. And it was probably at the stage now, and he was going to fight on the Tszyu undercard, of course. Tszyu and Charlo was about to step up. As I said before, this fight's probably come 4, 5, 6 fights too early, but take the fight. Who knows what can happen. Stephen Bateman again. I really want Beterbiev versus Bivol to happen. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Not looking good though. Well, they're still talking about it, Stephen. Beterbiev, look, this is the fight. He wants his fight with Bivol next. I've got a feeling Bivol wants the fight. The issue, of course, is there's a guy out there by the name of Canelo Alvarez who's got to decide whether he wants Bivol or he doesn't. Now, if I was Canelo, I would say, you know what, you guys go off and fight, because let's face it, he got beaten very easily by Bivol in the first fight. So I don't think Canelo's in a real hurry to fight him, especially he wasn't overly impressive in his last fight against Triple G. I would think if I was in Canelo's situation, I would say, well, I might go and defend my title against someone else. There's a few different ones out there he could probably fight. Of course, Benavides and Plan are fighting, but there's probably someone else he could fight. But Beterbiev and Bivol, let them fight later in the year. Canelo fights someone, and then maybe these guys fight at the end of the year in a massive fight. I think out of these two, I think if I was Canelo, I'd be hoping that Bivol wins, because at least Bivol's not going to really knock your head off if he starts getting going. Beterbiev is a beast, and I think he'd be all wrong for Canelo. He's big, he's strong, he's fit, he's hard, and he's a lot bigger than what Canelo is. I think that's a bad fight for Canelo. Bivol at least gives you a chance, an opportunity to beat him. So we'll see what happens there. But I would think if it come down to two of them, Bivol would have to take Canelo, wouldn't he? That's where the money is. Beterbiev is probably the more legacy fight for him, being the undisputed title. But Canelo, you've got to take Canelo. He's probably going to earn 10 times as much. So, Al Money, thanks for joining the show. Al, good morning, boxing fans. New to the channel, fan you at D-Style Boxing's page. Well, great to have you along, mate. I'm hoping you've seen our interview with Glenn Jennings earlier. Thanks, D-Style, for the recommendation. Good morning to you guys over there. It is about 9:05 on Monday night, the 23rd here, so a little bit ahead of you guys, but welcome to the channel. As I said, I hope you saw our interview with Glenn Jennings, Tim Tszyu's manager, earlier. If you haven't, go back to YouTube after this and watch it. Andy, congratulations, Beterbiev. Full props to Yard. Gave it his all and did better than most, including Joe Smith. Yeah, look, you're right, Andy, and I don't want to disparage Yard, because he had a really good fight, and he did better than what I thought he would, and a lot of people thought he would. So props to him. But Beterbiev, he's an absolute beast. There's no doubt about that. Even if Wilson loses, it's a great learning experience, says D-Style. Yeah, I agree, mate. And that's the thing. He's only a young guy. This is his 13th fight, and that's why I said you've got to take the fight. If he happens to lose it, well, guess what? You dust yourself off. He's got Australia's best boxing promotional firm behind him. They'll get behind him again and get him a couple of fights and get him back in a position. Because as I said earlier, he's probably 5 or 6 fights ahead of schedule anyway. So if he loses this one, get another 3, 4, 5 fights, and then maybe another shot will come about. So he's got a lot of boxing left in him no matter what happens. So I think in this day and age, we just tend to think if they lose a fight, your career's over. It's ridiculous. It really is. You're only as good as your last fight. As he showed against Noyne. He looked shocking against Noyne and got knocked out. And then comes back and knocks him out in, 2 or 3 rounds. So, and he's back on top. And then gets this opportunity. So, I'm with you, mate. It's all about experience. James Daly, hi. Al Money. Who's who of YouTube coming on here now? D-Style, Batman, etc. Hey, great to have you guys along. Hopefully you come back. And if my guys and girls are out there watching, obviously give D-Style Boxing a follow. Big on YouTube from the States. Just got out of work. We're doing some overtime. Good on you, mate. That's good. That's Eric from D-Style Boxing. Andy, good point, D-Style. It's something many lack to see, like Stevie Sparks stepping up to save Tim Tszyu card before giving Montana trouble. Really good point, guys. You would have seen it with Stevie Spark. If you weren't familiar, if you're from overseas and you weren't familiar, obviously you know Stevie Spark now because he got the win over Montana Love. Stevie Spark actually stepped up, was it a couple of years ago, to fight Tim Tszyu on a week and a half's notice. Michael Zarafa pulled out we won't go over, that's old news now for whatever reasons there was. Stevie Spark went up 2 divisions. So he went up 14 pounds. He fights at 140. He went up to 154 on a week and a half notice and took on Tim Tszyu. Didn't hesitate. Took it as an opportunity. Got stopped in 3 rounds, which was no surprise. Tim Tszyu was just demolishing everyone at that stage and continues to, of course. And Stevie Spark didn't let it get to him. He said, right, I'm going to use that as an experience. I want to get back there. Worked his way up, got his opportunity, and now he's world ranked, I think, in 3 organisations, and who knows what can happen to Stevie Spark in the next 12 to 18 months. So, classic example there, guys, of what can happen. So it's all about the experience. So, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. As I said, 10:30 Australian time, Southeastern Australian time. If you're overseas, I'm not quite sure what channel it might be on in the States, but it's in Glendale, Arizona. So if you know the time difference over there, I'm sure it's got to be on somewhere. Again, guys, just I know we're a little bit ahead. I'm about 30 or 40 seconds, so apologies if I missed your question. I'll go back. I asked Glenn the question earlier. What do you guys think about the Liam Paro Teofimo Lopez situation? Ranked number 1 and 2 in the WBO. Obviously, Josh Taylor got injured. He's out for an extended period. Paro Lopez, should they use this as a precedent, his management, Ace Boxing, and Eddie Hearn, of course, go to the WBO and use the Tszyu Charlo case as an example and say, if that's the case now, you set the precedent, we want to fight Lopez for the vacant title. I think 100% yes. And I wouldn't be surprised. I did say the other day, big news coming from Ace Boxing. I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case, if it's Paro Lopez for the WBO title maybe a little bit later in the year. I know he is scheduled to fight in England. Who knows, that could be off. I've got to feel that was an in-between fight anyway, keep busy fight. If the Lopez fight comes up and they're successful, I wouldn't be surprised if that fight gets announced very soon and we have a Liam Paro Teofimo Lopez WBO world title fight. Andy, what's the new Liam Paro news? Well, there you go. That's what I'm thinking there, Andy. You just got to read where there's smoke, there's fire. And a few things have happened, even in the last week. The Maloney-Donaire, we spoke about this fight last week. I said I wouldn't be surprised if this fight's very, very close to getting made. Well, I think I wouldn't be surprised if it's within the next couple of weeks they announce that fight. As I said, where there's smoke, there's fire. And in this situation here, with the big news coming, I would think it's going to be Paro Teofimo Lopez for the WBO junior welterweight world title, and that England fight will get wiped, and who knows what will happen. Yeah, Andy, yep, Liam Paro Teo should be. I reckon that's going to be the case, mate. Al Money, what's up there? D-Star, it's 5 a.m. my way. I started my shift at 3 a.m. It's 5 a.m. over there. Well, mate, I appreciate it. Even though you're supposed to be working, you're watching us, so I appreciate it. But get back to work. But don't, I said I'm joking, but really good to have some overseas viewers. And as I said, we're only a small channel. We're growing. We're over 500 subscribers now. I know that's only tiny, but we're looking to grow all the time and give content that, as I said before, maybe you don't get on other platforms. Speaking of Ace Boxing, Floyd Masson has been announced to fight. His name here, Fabio Turchi. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't really know anything about him. I don't know anything about him for the IBO Cruiserweight title. That's April 1st in Brisbane. So I don't know much about this Turchi. I didn't really get a chance to do a lot of research on him. But IBO Cruiserweight title, yes, I know it's not one of the big four, but still, it's a world title, and who knows where that can lead to. Might necessarily recognised as the world champion, but I tell you what, if he wins this one as the IBO title, what happens then when we start to get a bit of Jai action going, an all Aussie world title fight? We've just had the girls, of course, with Ebony Bridges and Shannon O'Connell. Could we see Floyd Masson and Jai for the IBO World Cruiserweight titles? And that's what I'm saying. It mightn't be for one of the most recognised belts out there, the IBO, but it's what it could be the stepping stone to that could cause all sorts of opportunities for Masson to take. So it's no different to taking a regional belt for rankings. Take the world title belt and see where it takes you. Andy says, back to Paro. Hopefully Paro's second to give Teo nightmares. Yeah, well, I don't think Teofimo Lopez is going to take this Aussie as lightly as he took the last one. The only little bit of respite he's going to get is Paro's not the most vocal guy. Kambosos, as you recall, was in his face. I think he had him beat mentally before the fight even started. And, of course, that big right hand in the first round just really set the pace. I don't think Teofimo Lopez is going to do the same against Paro. Having said that, I think the version of Lopez that went into the Kambosos fight is not necessarily the same Lopez that's going to enter the Paro fight if they do fight. I think his last couple of fights have lacked a lot. Been a little bit lackluster. Even himself, if you heard him in the ring and he said, "Have I still got it?" I don't know. I think maybe he needs a bigger opponent of more stature to maybe to get that back, a world title, which this could be, and maybe this is the fight that could do it. But from what I've seen, I give Paro a real chance. Again, Paro's not really overly well known in the States. Neither was Kambosos, of course. But the way Aussies are now, they're starting to get more and more recognition and respect. Jules, you're not small, Lyndon. You're bespoke. Thanks, Jules. I appreciate it, mate. Well, I know I'm big to you guys out there. That's all that matters. So, but yeah, no, I appreciate it, mate. Look, everyone starts somewhere, and I'm not necessarily after, 100,000 subscribers. I'd rather have a smaller audience that appreciate the content that we're bringing. I really enjoy the interaction with you guys on there. Whether there might only be 20 or 30 people online at a time, it doesn't matter. We had a lot of people that watch and listen to the show afterwards, which is great. But for me, I love getting on here and talking boxing. Whether there's 50 or 100 or 500, it doesn't really matter. We're here just to do what we all love, and that's to talk boxing. Where are we? D-Style, yes, mate. Come on, for sure. Hang on, I'll put the link in if you want to come on quickly. I want to hear what you got to say. See if I can find the link here. If you want to come on, we've got probably another 15 minutes or so, mate. So happy to have you on. There's the link. If you want to come on, mate, come on. Hopefully the internet speed's pretty good over there. Brock Jarvis, any news? No, mate. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got a fight pretty soon, I think. He's obviously been overseas doing a lot of training, and I think he'll be back. Jeez, he looks big though, doesn't he? Wouldn't be surprised if he comes back at junior middleweight the way he looks at the moment. He's massive. So not sure if that come up there, guys. Yeah, it did, the link. Jack, away, Jack. Thanks for hanging around, mate. Think Georgie broke poor Teo. Can't see him getting up for a fight like this like he did George. Big chance for Liam. Yeah, mate, I 100% agree. I think I don't think Liam's going to get a better opportunity than this. Teofimo Lopez, who knows what version of him is going to turn up, and whether the fire's still there. I mean, he's only still young. He's had some issues outside the ring, of course. I would have thought he might have replaced his trainer. I know it's never going to happen. It's his dad. He loves his dad. But this is a business, and I would have thought maybe the decision might have been made, even by his dad, to say, I'm going to step away and let you focus fully on your career. Let's get some new blood in there. Maybe a Robert Garcia or someone like that who can come in there and take charge of Teofimo Lopez. So yeah, we'll see. Some other news there, guys. Did see that Devin Haney, Lomachenko is not across the line just yet. There's been a few hiccups there. Apparently Haney has got some concessions in there that he's put on Lomachenko. Lomachenko hasn't agreed to them yet, even though initially he said he would agree to anything that came up. It's, of course, obviously about money. That's obviously always going to be the case. But if Lomachenko wants the belts or crack at the belts, I would think he would just cave and give Haney everything. And you've got to give Haney probably a little bit of latitude as well. He gave Kambosos all the, the lurks and perks or whatever you want, all the advantages and everything else, concessions that Kambosos wanted. Came to Australia twice and beat Kambosos. So I think he's within his rights to say, no, this time it's going to be on my terms. This time it's going to be where I want it to be. I'm going to take the lion's share of the money. I'm going to maybe take even a bigger percentage than what would normally be offered, because I'm the champion now. I've sacrificed a lot. I've got the 4 belts. You want them, you fight me. Because he's got so many other options as Haney. He's got Shakur Stevenson. He's got maybe Davis down the track, or Garcia, or I mean, so many different fighters that he could fight. So I don't think he needs Lomachenko. Lomachenko needs him. He's at the stage of his career. He doesn't just need to keep busy fights, and he's never been an active fighter anyway. He needs to fight for the belt. So if I was advising Lomachenko, sign away, as long as it's a ballpark figure. If it's 70-30 or 65-35, take it and move on. That would be my advice to Lomachenko, because you get the belts and then everything's on your terms. But we'll see. Andy, kind of sad. Josh Taylor shed belts to prove a point versus Cattrall in the rematch, then gets injured. Show must go on, though. Yeah, mate, as Glenn just said before, the show has got to go on. Now, it's unfortunate what happened to Josh Taylor, but it is what it is. We don't know when he's going to be back. Let's get some of those titles vacated. Josh Taylor obviously gets the first crack at it when he's able to. And does Cattrall then fight Regis Prograde or whoever it might be, Prograde, whatever it might be? Does he do that and move on from Taylor? And Taylor really could say, you know what? If this is going to happen, I'm going to move up to welterweight. There could be some vacant titles there. There could be a Crawford fight. I don't think Spencer's going to fight at welterweight again. I'd be surprised. But everything sort of has a ripple effect. And I would think that Taylor would say, you know what, I'm going to come back. I'm going to take this opportunity to go up to welterweight. The belts, if they are vacated or whatever it might be, let them go and move up and fight for one of the welterweight belts. Oh, there's D Style. Let's bring him on. Where are we? Guess 3. Where are we? I think we got him there. D Style, hey mate.
Hold on, give me a second. I don't know why this isn't. Give me a second here.
Can you see me there?
Why isn't this working?
Yeah, I've got you. Okay.
That's actually my fault. I just need to connect the Bluetooth so I could hear you.
Yeah, I can see you and hear you, mate. But have we got you there? I can see you and hear you. We might.
I got it. Okay, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, mate. All good. All good.
All right. How's it going? How's it going?
Really good, mate. What time is it over there?
Here it's like 3:20. I just got out of work, actually. I'm doing some overtime. I have a weird job, so I'm working like all the time. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. But hopefully you could hear me. But
yeah, mate. All good.
Cool. I just wanted to comment about the Navarrete thing. Look, I'm a fan of Navarrete. He's exciting to watch. You know, he is. Mm-hmm. He's an Orthodox, and I think that's giving a lot of fighters problems. Mm-hmm. The problem with unorthodox fighters, like at first they're hard to figure out, but I think once people figure them out, it becomes a problem for them, right? And I think that's what's been happening with him. Like I never liked that he had both feet off the ground, landing uppercuts. It looked great, you know, and caught fighters off guard. But at some point, like Hoet started timing it, kind of figured it out. So he couldn't really do that anymore. He looked human in there. I've seen some Liam Wilson. I got to be honest. It's not like I've been following the guy. First time I heard of him was when he was announced to fight Navarrete. So I watched some film. And I have to be honest, at first, I kind of dismissed him just off because I didn't recognize him. But I don't know. I think he might give Navarrete a fight here. I think we have a fighter in hands.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I know I'm Australian, so I'm always going to back the Aussie, but I know a lot about Liam Wilson. And you're right. You'll get away with the jumping off the ground and leading with hooks or uppercuts or whatever it might be and having your chin up in the air to a certain extent against a certain type of opponent. But when you get an opponent who, like you said, times the shots, has good balance, good kit of punches, it can get the job done. And all you got to do is look back. This is obviously not a fight of that magnitude, but look back when Barrera fought Prince Hamed. Hamed was always in and out and leading with lefts and rights and uppercuts and hooks. Typical Mexican fighter, very balanced, very good punches, and exposed Hamed. And not to say this is at that level, but it's a good example of what happens when you get a good polished fighter who does time the shots properly.
Yeah. Look, I think it's going to be a good fight. The thing with Navarrete, I just think he's getting figured out. Now, I don't know if Wilson's the guy to do it, right? I just want to say one more thing here before my phone's actually dying. Okay, I just figured that out. But I just wanted to comment on something. It's actually something I haven't really talked about on my show, and you and Glenn touched on it. So if you don't mind, it'll be like a quick minute or two. But
that's fine, mate.
I wanted to comment about the Shannon O'Connell situation, if I may. So first of all, look, I've been supporting Shannon, and I still support her, obviously. I don't know what her future holds or whatnot. That's going to be up to her and the situation. Obviously, some things are out of her control. But that week, I got really sick that week, so I wasn't really able to kind of comment on things or nothing. And by the time I got better, like things had already passed. What I will say is this: I I just feel like, what is that? Can you hear me?
Yeah, mate, go ahead. Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. All right, cool. So, all right, there we go. I think I will just backtrack. My bad. But here's the thing: that everything that happened that week, even on the lead up to that week, okay, there's a lot of people in the boxing world that are a bunch of hypocrites. I'm just going to say that right now. Hypocrites. I've seen fighters say way worse things, way worse than Shannon said, and then not get treated that way, right? Like, I'll just say that. I have heard fighters say ridiculous stuff, right? And did not get called the thing she was called. And that's just the truth. And I'm seeing I saw fighters, trainers, I saw all types of people, right, that are palling around with fighters. I'm seeing them right now that have said worse things, right? But they don't call out those fighters for those things. Whatever, right? It's a world of hypocrites when it comes to boxing, right? Everything that happened afterwards. Look, I know you talked about it. No fighter should be dealing with harassment for a bunch of idiots that never stepped in a ring in their life and that are hiding behind their fucking avatars. Okay? Like, the level of harassment that she was dealing with is ridiculous. Okay? Like, period.
Yep.
And I can't believe that was being allowed. And it was, in my opinion, it was pushed by the narratives, because that's what they were, okay, by a lot of individuals out there, which I will not name, right? So I just wanted to comment on that, right? I just don't think any fighter should be dealing with that. Like, fighters already step in the ring. They already put their lives on the line, as it is, right? She was basically a handicapped fighter in there, right? I understand Glenn doesn't want to make excuses. Shannon doesn't want to make excuses. Like, it is what it is, right? But to me, like, it just is what it is. So I'm not even saying make excuses for her. I'm saying at least give her the respect that other fighters get, right? That's all I ask. Just give her the respect. That's it. Somebody steps in the ring, give them respect. Even if you don't agree, some people I know, they've called out fighters before for going into the ring injured. It is what it is, right? Fighters do what they do. They have their reasons. We don't know their whole story. We don't know their situation. Just give them their respect. And that's how I kind of wanted to comment about that. But
no, I appreciate that, mate. And look, yeah, I'm with you. I've never seen anything like it. And I was going to say maybe because it was the females, but you've seen even recently some of the abuse that, you know, some of the female fighters have thrown against each other in the last few months. You know, we had the girls in England, was it Marshall and Shields, and you know, so yeah, it's not really the female thing, but I've never seen anything like it. And,
I don't want to interrupt, but
yeah.
So the situation, like when they took a little short clip of her calling Ebony fat, right? And they made, now whatever you want to feel about that is whatever, right? But that was, from my understanding, from something to do with their team wasn't able to see her step on the scale, right?
Yes, I'll tell you
It
that
had something
story.
to do with that, from what I understand.
You know, what actually happened is that it was 2 days, I think, before the weigh-in. Shannon was told she had to be,
right.
I think, 3 pounds within weight that day. Ebony Bridges was supposedly told the same thing. She never stepped on the scales. Shannon did. Ebony was not made to step on the scales, so we don't know what she weighed, which is why the comment was about what Shannon said, and it was not done to anyone in particular. It was done amongst her team. It was just that the match room microphones happened to catch it, and whoever was following her around and took great delight in putting it on. It was not meant to be a public comment. It was amongst the team, and it was overheard by the cameras and put on social media.
Well, look, the same people that were calling Shannon a bully and all this stuff, they're cool with Alicia Bumgarner, who was calling Makila Mayer a fat pig and a Karen and a horse face, right? So, like, we got to keep consistent out here, right? And look, I'm a boxing fan, bro. Like I've been watching boxing my whole life. I grew up watching fucking Ricardo Mayorga call Oscar De Hoya's son all types of names. Like that's crossing the line if I ever seen it, right?
Yeah.
So I saw like Duran say what he said to. Well, I didn't see it, but like I know of like Duran, like what he was saying to Ray Leonard's wife, like this is the game we're in. Like this is boxing, right? What they do in the ring is worse than words. Like they're punching each other, right? Like they're doing violence on each other as it is, right? So I just feel like it's one thing to get in the banter. It's one thing, but I personally, this is me. I don't like hypocrites, right? And I saw a bunch of hypocrites. Like to me, like I've seen a lot of them. I know a lot of them. They're the content creators on here, right? And it is what it is. People have a right to their opinions and all that, but I just want people to be consistent around here, right? Do you want fighters to speak their minds? Yes or no? Do you want fighters to be authentic? Do you want fighters to, and I believe fighters have a right to do it because they're going into the ring, they're going to go to war, right? And like they're backing it up by going to the fucking ring. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the cowards that hide behind their fucking keyboards and speak all types of nonsense.
Yeah.
You know, and all like that's all I'll say. You know, it is what it is. People are gonna act however they act, but what goes around comes around. That's all I got to say. You know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, mate. And you know, I will get Shannon on here at some stage when she's up to it. I didn't push Glenn too much tonight. I just wanted his opinion on a couple of things, but I'd like to get her opinion because I know speaking to her on the phone a couple of times that really, I think the response from some of the people out there really hit home harder than actually losing the fight, because some of the stuff that was getting said out there was putrid and should not be said by anyone, especially against an elite athlete that's, you know, trained to put their whole life on the line to fight for a world title and come up short. So anyway, I know there's always two sides of a story, but I'm with you there, Eric, because I fully agree with you, mate, and I'm really appreciate the way you've articulated it as well. And he is gone. I'd say his phone has run out. But so what do you guys think? Do you agree? And again, look, I'm not going to try and fly the whole Shannon O'Connell flag again. I understand that some of the stuff that she did probably she would not look back upon fondly. I think she would take back some of the things that she did, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm sure that she'll have a say on that at some stage. I'm talking about the people out there on social media or in as Eric said then, in the industry themselves, hypocrites, he said, that are in the industry who are saying one thing and pretty much doing the same thing. So I did notice there was one, I won't mention names, but all good there, D-Style. Audio was a mess, apologise about the phone. Yeah, all good, mate. I'd love to have you on again, mate, even if it's at 3 in the morning over there. There's one particular guy out there who had a fair bit to say, who's a trainer as well, and hasn't really done anything in the sport to even warrant having an opinion. However, he had his opinion, that's fine. Got on there like he was some, you know, well, he come across as a bit of a know-it-all, but some sort of guru he sort of put himself out there as, and I think embarrassed himself because had no right whatsoever to be commenting with some of the comments he did against someone like Shannon. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. So Andy, yep, champion D-Style he is, mate, and I like the way he really says it from the heart, and you could tell what he was saying there was from the heart. There was no just... he wasn't trying to really, you know, sort of do what he was, you know, a bit pissed off with some other people about. He was saying it the way it was, which is all you can do. And look, I suppose that's the moral of the whole story here is that it's okay to have an opinion. It's okay to have your say, but just do it in a, I suppose we'll call it a professional way. Do it with some style, some dignity. Get your point across without coming across as a dick. And really, and especially in this day and age of mental health and everything else, you know, especially those that advocate for mental health and then on the other hand are digging the boots in whenever they get a chance. I just don't get it. But anyway, but just do it with a bit of class, guys. Have your say, but do it in the right way. Anyway, Stephen says, yep, he was totally right. Yes, I agree, Stephen. He was 100% right. I'd like to have him on at a reasonable hour, of course, although if it's always going to be 3 o'clock when we're on, 3:30, whatever it is, but maybe when his phone's charged and he's got a little bit more light. But great to have him on, so thanks, D-Style, for coming on, mate. Appreciate it. Jack says, I was due to do a post with her and she asked me to wait on posting it due to the hate she was copying. We put it up and she still copped it. Yep, there you go, Jack. That's it in a nutshell, mate. Can't even put a post up, a motivational post, or a tribute post as it is. What's the name of it again there, Jack? Is it Tribal Mentality? Check it out on Instagram, guys. Some unbelievable clips Jack is putting together of all different fighters out there. Tribal Mentalities. Check it out because they are awesome. And Jack, I think I need to get you to do some stuff for me, mate. But I'll talk to you about that. But good point there, what you've said. Would be certain Shannon would go about things differently though if she knew this was going to happen. Yeah. As I said, Jack, I'm not saying Shannon's victimless here. I mean, or blameless. She's she had her say, and she's willing to cop that, and that's what I'm sort of getting at. It's just after it's said and done, guys, we really need to be going as hard as what we were and getting so personal. And Shannon hasn't. I mean, she's put some stuff on about the shoulder, but it's nothing saying this was the reason I lost. Everyone, there's a lot of other people will probably say that. She's never said that. But getting a shoulder part replacement, it's got to be a major injury. And and things like the weight thing. I've never heard of having to make weight 2 days before the fight for some media weigh in, and the opponent doesn't weigh in, but she does. Little things like that. I'm not saying it's the reason she lost. Let's just get all the facts right. And the thing about her son, I'm going to say it. Telling Ebony where to go. Well, there wasn't sort of said that Ebony was in their corner pretty much, gobbing off and having a bit to say. Her son told her to piss off. I would have done exactly the same thing, to be honest. I know it doesn't look good coming from a 16-year-old kid, but if my mother had just been stopped or beat up by someone and they're over there in my face gloating, I'd tell them where to go as well. I'm just saying. And the other golden girl at ringside that copped it as well, well, there's nothing said about her sitting in the corner, yap, the whole time, and giving a nice little smirk to Shannon once the decision was announced. So anyway, just putting it out there, there's always two sides of a story. Now I'll probably cop it from them, but anyway, I don't give a shit. I don't care. That's the one. How much do I owe you for that? Nothing, mate. Happy to give you a leg up. So that's Tribal Mentality, guys. Check it out on Instagram. So, all right, guys. If there's nothing else to say, I'll give it another sort of 30 seconds or so, and we'll call it a night. It's about 25 to 10 here, so I'm about 5 minutes over schedule already. But mate, guys, really appreciate all you that have joined live. I know a lot of you are watching and listening to this after the fact. So I appreciate you all as well. Again, I'll give the other show a quick plug. It'll be out this week. It's called What's Your Verdict? Where we get a controversial fight from the past, go through it round by round, a quick overview of round by round, and I'll give you my verdict, a round by round total, and then my score at the end, and we can obviously hear your opinion as well. I'm sure I'll cop it about I know nothing about boxing and what fight was I watching. Again, just my opinion, guys. But we're going to start with Hagler-Leonard, one of the most controversial fights of all time. So I'll run through that and give you the lowdown. Any suggestions, let me know. What's up there? People just love to shit on others. Yep, that's a sad human trait that rears its ugly head via social media. Yes, it does, mate. And look at... We love social media on one hand, I think it's great, but on the other hand, it is the scourge of society at the moment because a lot of the shit that goes on is all stemmed from social media. And let's not get into all that. That's a conversation for another time. But guys and girls and everyone in between, really appreciate you logging in tonight and joining the conversation. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Glenn. Again, thanks very much to him for coming on. Very, very much appreciated. And let's maybe get him on a little bit down the track closer to March 12 and give us a bit of an update of what's happening with Tim and Harrison. And, of course, hopefully later on in the year, Azu and Charlo. So thanks again, and we'll see you next week.